After 8 months since the outbreak of the Pacific War, after many defeats at the hands of the invaders, and after many bold actions that resulted in the few successes that the Allies enjoyed during the war, the time is finally ripe for the start of the first Allied offensive against the Japanese Empire, the invasion of the Solomon Islands. Yet this was not only the first Allied offensive of the Pacific War, this was also the first American amphibious invasion in many decades, an invasion that would cement the importance of the US Marines for years to come. Welcome to our video on the start of the crucial Solomon Islands campaign, covering the initial landings on Guadalcanal, Tulagi, and the islands of Gavutu and Tanambogo. There was another wing of history going on throughout the Second World War that can be summed up with one name: Stalin. Our sponsor Magellan TV brings you this story in their documentary Stalin, Russia's Steel Tyrant. With the help of historians, archive footage and reenactments, they lay out Stalin's rise to power, grasping his way up from fringe outlaw to premier of a new superpower, achieving great things, but often through horrendous methods. Some lionize him as a hero, others see him among the most evil men ever to rule. See for yourself in this great documentary, available now. And there's loads of other great content on Magellan TV. They boast the richest and most varied history content available anywhere, covering everything from the ancient to modern eras, wars, biographies, and the Earth itself. Aside from history, they've got extensive collections of science, true crime, travel, and other documentaries. They add 15 or more hours of 4K high-definition content every week for their subscribers at no extra cost. It's all viewable anytime, anywhere, on televisions, laptops, mobile devices, and more. Get access to 3,500 hours of ad-free documentaries for only $4.99 a month, and get a month for free by subscribing to Magellan TV via our link in the description. In our previous episodes, we've already delved into the origins of the Solomon Islands offensive. General MacArthur and Admiral King did not get along and were competing for resources to be the first to take control of the offenses, such as King's desire to first liberate the Solomon Islands, to then gradually approach the island of New Britain, and the main Japanese base in the region, Rabaul. What is important to remember about this is that on July 2nd, a compromise was reached between Army and Navy, allowing King and the Pacific Fleet to lead the initial assault on Tulagi and the Southern Solomons, while MacArthur and his Southwest Pacific area would command the subsequent offensives against the northeastern coast of New Guinea, the Northern Solomons, and Rabaul. After this compromise was reached, Admiral Gormley and General MacArthur met in a conference in which both commanders agreed that the offensive should be postponed until the American strength in the South Pacific area had been built up sufficiently to provide adequate support for the operation, especially in the matter of air power. This request was promptly denied by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as it was imperative that the operation be commenced as soon as possible, so they would only allow to set back the date to August 7th. Gormley would, however, be reinforced with shipborne aircraft and surface forces, including some 35 heavy bombers from Hawaii, and he would also receive MacArthur's pledge to support him with his own naval forces. Additionally, Major General Millard Harmon would be appointed to command Army forces in the South Pacific area, proving to be a fortuitous choice due to the excellent cooperation that he would show in the future. With the plans for the offensive now beginning their implementation, Operation Watchtower was finally born. Meanwhile, Admiral Inouye and his 4th Fleet also continued to make preparations for what he had always been expecting: an American offensive against the South Pacific. As we'll recall, Inouye was a very air-minded commander, believing that the security of the new borders of the Japanese Empire lay with the construction and usage of a great number of fortified airfields. In that regard, he had previously expanded into Lae, Salamaua, Tulagi, Buka, and Bougainville, constructing important seaplane bases and airfields in these places. From Tulagi, the Japanese reported in May that the island of Guadalcanal was amenable for the installation of an advanced airbase, so Inouye would elect to place another base near the mouth of the Lunga River, with the first body of Japanese soldiers arriving to the island on June 8th to survey the area. On July 6th, the main Japanese convoy would finally arrive with personnel and equipment for the construction of the airbase, including 1,350 men from Captain Monzen Kane's 13th Construction Unit and 1,221 men from Lieutenant Commander Okamura Tokunaga's 11th Construction Unit. Due to the reorganization of the combined fleet that was carried out in July, Inoue and his 4th Fleet would then be replaced by the 8th Fleet of Admiral Mikawa, who wouldn't have much time to prepare before the commencement of hostilities in his new area of command. Yet the plans laid out by Inoue for the construction of a new base in Guadalcanal would still be carried out during this period of transition. Interestingly enough, upon assuming command, Mikawa had predicted that Guadalcanal would be attacked before the completion of the airbase, but the leading commanders of the IJN discarded this prediction, as they still believed that the Allies would mount no serious counterattack before 1943. The presence of the Japanese in Guadalcanal would later be reported by Australian coast watchers on the island, and as the invaders constructed their new base, the Americans prepared to rapidly expel them from there with the execution of Operation Watchtower, just as Mikawa had foreseen. For this, Gormley was assigned the understrength 1st Marine Division of Major General Alexander Vandegrift, which was in the process of getting transferred to protect New Zealand. Vandegrift was to be reinforced by the 2nd Marine Regiment and the 3rd Defence Battalion as a reserve, totaling some 19,000 Marines at his command. He was also to be supported by a small but powerful fleet consisting of 3 aircraft carriers, 1 battleship, and a number of destroyers and cruisers, under the overall command of the veteran of Midway and the Coral Sea, the now Vice Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher. As we've mentioned, the air strength that Gormley enjoyed was by no means adequate. In addition to the 250 planes of the carrier force of Rear Admiral Lee Noyes, Gormley had at his disposal 114 Navy and Marine planes, 133 Army planes, and 30 New Zealander planes, totaling some 277 aircraft under the command of Rear Admiral John McCain. Employing the scant information gathered from the personal knowledge of former residents and travellers of the area, Gormley had planned to carry out 2 amphibious invasions, one against Tulagi and the other against Guadalcanal. For the Tulagi invasion, General Vandegrift assigned Brigadier General William Rupertus to command Group Yoke, consisting of the 1st Raider Battalion, the 1st Parachute Battalion, and the 2nd Battalion of the 5th Marine Regiment, units that were considered amongst the best of the division. Meanwhile, Vandegrift himself would lead Group X-Ray in the invasion of Guadalcanal, having at his disposal the rest of the reinforced division. The landings would not enjoy adequate air and surface support, so the Marines would have to unload all transports during the first 3 days. Admirals King and Gormley also called for the execution of diversionary attacks to lure the attention of the enemy away from the Solomon Islands. For this, we'll recall that the British unsuccessfully carried out Operation Stab as a feint to drive away Japanese attention from the South Pacific, but the Americans had also decided to carry out 2 operations to lure the invaders away from the objective of Operation Watchtower. One of them would be the hit-and-run attack on Makin Island, carried out by the 2nd Raider Battalion on August 17th, which we'll cover more in depth in future episodes. But the other would be the first naval bombardment of Kiska in the Aleutian Islands. As we've seen, the Americans had launched over a dozen air raids on the captured island of Kiska during the month of June, all ranging with various degrees of success. But as the defenders tried to inflict as much damage as possible, the invaders were quickly reinforcing their positions on the islands of Attu and Kiska. With the harsh Alaskan winter approaching, Generals Buckner and Butler continued to order air raids over the island of Kiska during the month of July. Significantly, submarine attacks would manage to sink 2 Japanese destroyers and severely damage another 2. The Japanese also attempted a few of their own raids in July, but their efforts would be fruitless due to the frigid North Pacific weather, and Admiral Theobald would be forced to relinquish his at-sea command of the North Pacific Force due to his failure to carry out offensive operations against Kiska. He would be replaced with Rear Admiral William Smith on August 3rd, who would be immediately assigned the bombardment of Kiska as a distraction for Operation Watchtower. Mere hours later, he would depart Kodiak with the bulk of his task force, arriving at his destination on August 7th and conducting a very ineffective bombing of the Japanese base due to poor visibility and shaky navigation, which forced Smith to shell the harbour by indirect fire from a range of 11 miles. The failure to inflict damage over the Japanese base meant that the diversionary attack also lacked success, since no relief would be sent to Kiska. In the meantime, Gormley had directed all his dispersed forces to rendezvous by July 26th at a position south of Fiji, where they couldn't be observed by the Japanese. In a meeting at the Saratoga, Admiral Fletcher, who didn't believe the operation was going to succeed since it hadn't been thoroughly planned, would then announce that his carriers were to stay in the area only for a period of 72 hours, something that surprised many of the commanders involved, even though it was true that the carriers would be too exposed against Japanese land-based aircraft. Between July 28th and 30th, the invasion fleet would also carry out rehearsals of the landings before finally departing Koro towards the Solomons during the night of July 31st. Luckily, the approach towards the objective proceeded completely unmolested, as the Japanese patrol planes were grounded in Rabaul due to bad weather, so the Americans would be able to achieve full surprise. In the early hours of August 7th, the invasion force was in position directly west of Cape Esperance when groups Yoke and X-Ray separated to carry out their respective landings. With the approaches accomplished without incident, the surface forces of Rear Admiral Richmond Turner started to open fire on the Japanese-controlled islands around 0600, while the aircraft of the carrier force of Admiral Noyes bombed and strafed the Japanese positions, managing to destroy some 15 float planes at Tulagi. At 0740, the first landing of the operation was carried out by elements of the 1st Battalion of the 2nd Marines near Haleta and then at Halivo on the island of Florida in order to protect the flanks of Group Yoke. The main objective, Tulagi, was attacked at 0800 under the cover of gunfire from Turner's vessels, with the bulk of Group Yoke successfully landing at Beach Blue without opposition and immediately beginning movement inland. The Americans, however, were hassled by the coral formations around the beach, which hung up the landing craft and forced the men to wade ashore. Around 900 IJN personnel under Commander Suzuki Masaaki, including 350 SNLF Marines, were also concentrated in the southeastern part of the island, and at this point they had finally realized that an all-out assault was underway, so they notified Rabaul and then prepared to fight to the last man. 2 companies of Colonel Merritt Edson's 1st Raider Battalion advanced inland steadily and without resistance, until one of the companies encountered an enemy outpost at Carpenter's Wharf. The remaining companies then followed suit upon landing, finding no resistance either until they reached Tulagi's government station around midday. From this line onwards, all 4 Raider companies began to find heavy Japanese opposition, especially at Hill 208, where the Marines were ambushed by the tenacious defenders. Although Hill 208 could be cleared from the enemy presence after an hour of fighting, a naval bombardment would be ordered against the southeastern ridge, resulting in a general withdrawal by the Japanese towards their main positions around Hill 281. The American advance then continued slowly until dusk, when the Marines would reach the northwest slope of Hill 281 and its nearby ravine, having to wait until the next morning to commence their costly assault. The Japanese attacked the Marine defences 5 times that night, beginning at 22:30. Many of these attacks saw hand-to-hand combat. Although they managed to achieve minor penetrations, Commander Suzuki believed he was heavily outnumbered, so he only wanted to inflict casualties on the enemy before his eventual demise. Edson's raiders did suffer many casualties, but they also inflicted several upon the Japanese, successfully managing to hold their positions throughout the rest of the night. On the morning of August 8th, the Marines rapidly started to move to surround Hill 281 and its ravine, sweeping across the hill, and leaving an enemy pocket at the ravine flanked on 3 sides. After conducting a mortar bombardment of the pocket by afternoon, The Americans then attacked from the northwest and pushed through the ravine, wiping out all enemy resistance. By nightfall, Tulagi lay firmly in the hands of the Allies, and the main objective of the invasion had been reached. In the meantime, the 1st Parachute Battalion went ashore at the island of Gavutu at 1200 on August 7th. The Marines landed in 3 waves, enjoying the support of naval gunfire and of aircraft dive bombing, but still suffering many casualties against the frontal fire of the alerted garrison and the flanking fire from Tanambogo. The Marines were then rapidly pinned down with heavy fire by the 300 Japanese troops in Gavutu, led by Captain Miyazaki Shigetoshi, but by 1430, the battalion had pushed the defenders towards Hill 148. The eastern and southeastern slopes of the hill were rapidly reduced, but the western and southwestern slopes were protected by the flanking fire from Tanambogo, so this island was first required to be occupied. In that regard, a company of the 2nd Marines was ordered to land on the eastern shore of Tanambogo. Under the cover of darkness, the company stealthily attempted its landing, but a shell fired by Turner's vessels hit a fuel dump and caused an explosion that exposed the Marines. The 240 Japanese defenders, mostly air crew and maintenance personnel from the Yokohama Air Group, many not equipped for combat, then opened fire with their machine guns, inflicting severe casualties on the company and forcing the Marines to re-embark and withdraw towards Gavutu. Meanwhile, after a preliminary naval and aerial bombardment, Vandergrift's Marines had also landed at Red Beach on Guadalcanal around 0900, finding no enemy resistance to their surprise. It appears that the Japanese troops started to panic due to the harsh bombardment, fleeing about 3 miles and abandoning the airfield area along with their food, supplies and equipment. Upon landing, Vandergrift then directed the 1st Marine Regiment to advance southwest towards the distant Mount Austin, while a battalion of the 5th Marines was ordered to advance west and secure the mouth of the Tenaru River, which was actually Alligator Creek, not the Tenaru, which lay further south. By nightfall, the landing area had been secured and supplies continued to be moved. The 1st Marines, however, would soon realize that it was impossible to get to Mount Austin, so Vandergrift decided to send his forces west for an attack against the Japanese airfield at Lunga. Because of Fletcher's decision to withdraw after 3 days, the unloading of supplies was being rushed, and it would soon get out of hand. Furthermore, Vice Admiral Yamada Sadayoshi of the 25th Air Flotilla was sending wave after wave of aircraft from Rabaul. After 2 days, the air raids would result in the destruction of 36 Japanese planes and 19 American aircraft, the sinking of a transport, a bomb hit over the destroyer Mugford that only caused medium damage, and a torpedo hit on the destroyer Jarvis that caused severe damage. Also, with the recent defeat at Tanambogo, General Rupertus requested during the night that his 2 reserve battalions be prepared to depart Guadalcanal and support the 1st Parachute Battalion. Only one of the battalions, however, would be deployed on Gavutu to eliminate all remaining opposition, with one company, supported by 2 tanks, having the mission to seize Tanambogo. Supported by Turner's naval gunfire, the Marines successfully landed on their objectives by noon on August 8th, completely wiping out the Japanese troops in Gavutu thanks to the support of their tanks. The Marines then secured a beachhead on Tanambogo during the afternoon, with the Gavutu forces launching a supporting attack across the causeway that gradually pushed the Japanese defenders and secured 2/3 of the island. With darkness falling, close fighting ensued between the Marines and small groups of soldiers that sallied out of foxholes and dugouts, resulting in the complete fall of Tanambogo by August 9th. In the meantime, Vandergrift's men were steadily advancing towards Lunga after crossing Alligator Creek, with the 1st Marines hindered by having to cross the creek some 500 yards inland from its mouth. Some of the 1st Marines, however, skirted the headwaters and plunged immediately into the thick jungle growth which lies to the south of the Lunga airfield. By nightfall, the airfield had been overrun, and Lunga had been reached by Vandergrift's Marines, facing only very slight resistance. The following day, the Americans would cross the Lunga River and would advance in the direction of Kukum, the main Japanese encampment, which the Marines soon found deserted, and with large quantities of food, ammunition and equipment left behind. For the American commanders, this was a very good start for Operation Watchtower. But next week, Admiral Mikawa and the Japanese would prepare for a counterattack that would become one of the worst defeats in the history of the US Navy. And after a week of respite, the Australians would also attempt their own counterattack against the invaders at Kokoda. So don't forget to check out our next episode of the Pacific War. If you don't want to miss any of our episodes, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.